Narcissistic collapse is a devastating experience that can happen to someone with strong narcissistic traits. In this video, we will dive deep into understanding everything you need to know about narcissistic collapse. From what causes it, what the signs are, and how to prevent it. This video will equip you with knowledge on this complex phenomenon. What is narcissistic collapse? A narcissistic collapse refers to a breakdown that occurs when a narcissist faces failure, criticism, or exposure of their false self. Their defense mechanisms crumble, leaving them unable to maintain their grandiose facade. During a narcissistic collapse, the narcissist's inflated ego completely deflates in a spectacular implosion. They are left feeling weak, empty, and even suicidal. Narcissistic collapse can be triggered by events that inflict a major wound on the narcissist's ego. For example, being publicly shamed, losing a job or relationship, having secrets exposed, or being rejected by a loved one. Their false sense of superiority shatters, plunging them into despair. It is a harrowing experience that leaves the narcissist feeling raw and vulnerable. What happens during narcissistic collapse? When a narcissist goes through a collapse, their entire persona unravels. Their mask of confidence slips away, revealing the fragile ego underneath. No longer able to sustain their delusions of grandeur, the narcissist often spirals downwards. They descend into chaos and panic, desperately trying to cling onto their disintegrating sense of self. The narcissist's emotions seesaw between rage and utter desolation. One moment they are exploding with entitled fury. The next, they are drowning in pits of despair. Their mood swings become uncontrollable as they frantically try to process this narcissistic injury. Some narcissists turn self-destructive during a collapse, abusing drugs or alcohol. Others retreat from the world, isolating themselves to avoid further wounds to their ego. Many experience frightening dark thoughts and feelings of worthlessness. It is an excruciatingly painful time for them. Signs of an impending narcissistic collapse. There are several red flags that indicate a narcissistic collapse is imminent. Recognizing these signs can help brace you for the chaos that is about to unfold. Hypersensitivity. The narcissist becomes extremely defensive and overreacts to even minor criticisms. Their ego feels threatened. Emotional turmoil, fluctuating between rage, self-pity, paranoia, and despair. Their mood is erratic. Reckless behavior, acting out through substance abuse, gambling, reckless spending, or dangerous sexual behavior. Withdrawal, isolating themselves from others to brood and reflect after ego injury. Coping mechanisms fail. Defense mechanisms like rationalization, projection, and denial no longer work to protect their ego. Desperation for validation, begging for compliments, acting out for attention. Their fragile ego needs nourishment. These behaviors signal that the narcissist's ego is under siege. A collapse allows their real insecurities to surface. Why narcissistic supply cuts lead to collapse. Narcissists need constant validation and attention from others, known as narcissistic supply. This external praise fuels their ego and fragile self-esteem. When their supply gets cut off, the narcissist crumbles. Losing their job, getting rejected by a lover, having friends turn away. These massive blows to a narcissist's ego can cause a collapse. Their beloved narcissistic supply has dried up, wrecking their sense of importance. Additionally, the narcissist relies on others to prop up their false self. When people stop feeding into their facade, it quickly unspools. A collapse is often triggered when people cease to buy into the narcissist's con. Causes of a narcissistic collapse. There are a few common situations that cause a narcissist to spiral into collapse. Some of the most prominent triggers include end of a relationship. Being left by a spouse or lover delivers a huge narcissistic injury. The narcissist fears abandonment. Job loss or failure. Being fired, demoted, or having a major project fail destroys the narcissist's grandiose career fantasies. Public shaming. Having misdeeds, secrets or failures revealed to the world is tremendously humiliating for a narcissist. Financial crisis. Going bankrupt is deeply shaming. Having status symbols taken away robs them of self-worth. Major illness. A serious health blow threatens the narcissist's feelings of youthfulness, strength, and invulnerability. Narcissistic collapse plunges the narcissist into an existential crisis. Their identity is fractured, forcing them to face uncomfortable truths about themselves. Collapse in overt versus covert narcissists. The narcissistic collapse manifests somewhat differently in overt and covert narcissists. Overt narcissists are outwardly grandiose, arrogant, and entitled. When they collapse, their rage combusts. They behave recklessly, spewing vitriol and looking for ways to re-establish their dominance. Meanwhile, covert narcissists are more introverted and passive-aggressive. In collapse, they withdraw into isolation and sink into depression. Losing their secretly superior self-image is devastating. Both types become profoundly empty during collapse. But overt narcissists implode with theatrical aggression, while covert narcissists silently withdraw into darkness. Extreme behaviours in narcissistic collapse. In a desperate bid to rebuild their shattered ego, collapsing narcissists often turn to extreme behaviours, violent outbursts, raging at the world with threats, property destruction, or physical abuse. Substance abuse, abusing alcohol, drugs, sex, or gambling to numb their inner pain. Excessive spending, splurging on lavish purchases restores their fleeting feelings of greatness. Dangerous sex, emotionally detached promiscuity to generate validation and attention. Manipulation, pathological lying, gaslighting, and hoovering to regain a sense of power. The narcissist's grip on reality loosens. They rely on unhealthy coping mechanisms to stave off their despair and self-loathing. Impact of collapse on relationships. A narcissistic collapse can have catastrophic effects on the narcissist's relationships. Verbal or physical abuse often spikes as the narcissist lashes out. Manipulation rises as they desperately try to control the people around them. Narcissistic rage causes them to say cruel, demoralizing things to loved ones. Their neediness and instability can suck partners into a traumatic codependent cycle. A victim mentality often emerges, blaming others for their woes. Partners and family members are used as punching bags or sources of supply during the collapse. The people closest to the narcissist bear the brunt of their ego disintegration. The collapse compromises relationships, testing them to their limits. Do narcissists recover from collapse? The narcissist strongly desires to escape the excruciating pain of a collapse. Many desperately find ways to resurrect their broken ego. Sources of validation, like a new relationship, career success, or restored status, can lift them out of the collapse temporarily. However, the underlying insecurities remain unhealed. Without therapy, the narcissist's ego stays fragile. This leaves them prone to suffering repeated collapses when confronted, even with mild criticism or setbacks. Their relationships seesaw between cycles of collapse and brief recovery. Preventing narcissistic collapse. It is difficult to prevent a narcissistic collapse entirely, since life presents inevitable ego blows. But some strategies can help stabilize the situation. The narcissist should pursue therapy to address their inner vulnerabilities and improve their self-esteem. Talk therapy can help build emotional resiliency. Cultivating interests and meaningful goals beyond ego gratification can ground the narcissist. Victims and loved ones can set firm boundaries around abusive behaviors that emerge during collapse. Boosting communication and minimalizing criticism when the narcissist seems unstable may help avoid triggering collapse. Offering genuine compassion while holding them accountable for bad behavior balances tough love and care. With commitment and insight, a narcissistic collapse can present opportunities for growth and relationship repair, but recovery demands courage, patience, and understanding from all involved. Responding to a narcissist's collapse. Coping with a narcissist undergoing collapse is challenging. Here are tips for protecting yourself. Refuse to be their punching bag. Withdraw contact if needed until they stabilize. Resist getting sucked into pitying or caretaking the narcissist. This often perpetuates the cycle. Set firm boundaries around acceptable behavior. Walk away if boundaries are violated. Seek support from others who understand narcissistic abuse to stay grounded. Avoid explaining, arguing, or threatening. Stay neutral but firm. Document any abuse or destruction that occurs as evidence. Prioritize your mental health and disengage during times of crisis. The narcissist's collapse is not your responsibility to fix. Your main priority should be preserving your safety and peace of mind. Conclusion. Narcissistic collapse is an excruciating experience, both for the narcissist and those close to them. The event tests relationships to their limit, yet it also presents an opportunity for growth and connection, if met with empathy, education, and boundary setting. With care, collapse can precipitate positive transformation.